Hey, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt.
I really hate that.
I hate it too. My kids do it all the time.
I actually hate people who love that joke.
It got to the point where I say it to my kids.
Chicken butt.
Hey guys, what's up? And they go, guess what? And they go, what? I go, chicken butt.
Oh,
So fucking dumb.
yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about chicken butts. We're here to talk
No.
about movies.
But what part of do people eat the chicken butt?
The chicken tail.
You eat the chicken tail?
Yeah, dude, it's really fucking good.
Part of the chicken is it just called chicken tail?
Yeah, so you have like it's like really fatty because it's like just basically a place where all the feathers like hang out.
Oh.
And it's really
Oh.
good. Like if you ever have like rotisserie chicken, it's like
That's
you
the
see it. It's
okay.
right there.
I would say
Yeah.
people be saying like don't do chicken breast, it's always dry. I don't get how people don't know how to fucking cook their chicken breast. I'm cooking chicken breast all the time. It's fucking fire.
Yeah, dude, it's not that fucking
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like one of the easiest things to cook.
It is.
Just check on it.
Right,
You just gotta
marinate that shit. You have oil?
marinate it,
You have
marinate it.
lemon? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
So we're here to talk about the creator.
The creator.
So, funny thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's the spooky season,
Yes.
and we are already 12 days into the spooky season,
Ooh.
and we haven't talked about a single spooky in the spooky season. We are going to talk about a spooky today.
We are.
Technically speaking,
It's a thriller.
it starts on Spoogist,
Spoogist.
and Spooktember, and then
Yes.
Spooktober.
Yes.
So we did talk about Haunting in Venice, but that wasn't
That wasn't
a true spooky.
Wasn't a true spooky.
And neither is the one we're talking about right now, which is the creator.
Yeah.
So the creator is a new movie by Gareth Edwards, who made
Of Rogue One fame.
Rogue One.
And it was funny when I was watching it, I was like, oh, like what do you make since Rogue One? Like I haven't seen him in a while. And then I found out.
Not
Nothing.
a damn thing.
Yeah.
Which it's sad because I really like a lot of the ideas in Rogue One.
I love Rogue One.
If I'm not mistaken, he was not the writer in Rogue One. So like the things that didn't work
Were not his
were not his. Like it was written by other people. But like the visual components of Rogue One were really cool.
Also, it was supposed to be an anthology story. Well, that's not to say you can excuse like every flaw, but the point is like it was supposed to be like comfort food.
Yeah.
Like people who critique this movie too much for like characterization, I get it, but it's like this was supposed to be something extra that looked nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which it did. Yeah. Which it did.
He did a good job. So now that he's got his own movie, he basically decided to make basically
his own Star Wars movie.
Which we will touch on like all of these like not behind the scene things, but like inspirations in the movie, because there's a lot.
There are.
The movie heavily focuses on artificial intelligence, which go figure is way more timely than he probably anticipated, because this is not a movie that was like, hey, we're doing this, it's 2022, let's film in the year. No, like this took some time, especially with the way it was filmed. They kept this shit super cheap. It looks amazing.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that has to do with how they filmed the movie. They had to do like they didn't have any sets. They would go to locations. They would only take like one or two people, and they would film like essentially out in public. Like they would not close off a beach. They would film in the public beach.
That's so cool.
And so like that, those are things that helps keep that budget like nice and tight.
Yeah.
And honestly, like it sucks that the movie's not doing better financially. Because like this is kind of what needs to happen, dude.
I want to ask you at some point, like what people's beef with this movie actually is.
Oh, it's the fact that the ratings are too smooth.
I think so.
Yes.
Because I mean, every critic also said this, so I was ready to say this on the show, but then everybody kept on saying it, so I was like, okay, I'm not nearly as original. But I walked out of that movie, I'm like, if you are one of those people who it's like, why isn't there anything original anymore? And you are not seeing this movie, you need to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I have no qualms with the Saw crowd. I have no qualms, but we went to the movies that night. It was also the premiere of Saw. Everybody was there to see Saw.
Yeah.
God bless.
It's a long ass line for the popcorn.
Yep. But if any of them are like, nothing original anymore.
Yeah.
Crucify them.
Yeah, dude, fuck them.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? So like you have let's just kind of get into it, right? So the movie is relatively original, right?
Yep.
It's an original not concept, original story.
Yes.
The concepts are not original.
No.
Which they don't have to be. We've had this chat before.
Well, as the great Roger Ebert said, it's not about what the story is about. It's about how the story is about it.
Exactly. Like it's getting to the point where like we've made movies about everything.
Yep.
Like we made movies about feelings. For fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
We made movies about like the cells in your body.
And sequels to the movies about feelings.
And apparently, apparently that I didn't even know that like a trailer was coming out.
Yeah. We made movies about feelings, and then they're like, that feeling shit was good. Let's make movies about fire and water.
Yeah. With some weird like interracial like themes sprinkled in it.
Fire fucked the water.
Oh no. So like there is no such thing as like an original concept. Maybe every once in a while you'll get something.
Right.
But like it's how you do this, how you film it, how you have the story work together, how it flows.
But this reality also isn't new. This is like Joseph Campbell. And he wasn't probably even the first person to notice this. Mm-hmm. That like, stories follow archetypes.
Yeah. Right?
And they follow them because they work.
Yes, exactly, right? Yeah. Every once in a while you get a movie that's like not very conventional, like Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
It does not follow like a nice, steady 3-arc structure.
Yeah.
Right? You do not have your hero's journey because the movie is not filmed that way and it's not meant, but it takes someone with a lot of skill to be able to pull that off.
But then it was also intentionally done that way.
Exactly. Yeah. But like now you have essentially like 100 years of like cinema that you can pull from. Odds are, even if you're not trying to be derivative, you're going to be derivative.
Sure.
Right? And this movie, I think, excels in showing you similar tropes that you've seen before,
right?
But doing them in a way that is well acted, well shot. The stakes feel real.
Yeah.
And, I think that matters to me more than if this was something completely, truly original. Because I think at the end of the day, like what matters is this a good, well put together film? And I think it is.
I want people who have a hard on for originality to go read a little, I don't even know what to call it. It's called Tender Buttons. It's by a very famous author named Gertrude Stein. I'm saying just go read it. And then you come back and tell me that originality is good. I'll have you read Tender Buttons in between this and our next episode.
Yeah. Yes, I'll read that shortly, I guess.
You can read it shortly. Oh, okay. Yes, you can read it shortly.
So, all right. So this movie is basically, it's a, how they always like, how sometimes you can describe a movie by saying it's this meets this.
Yeah.
This movie, it's basically like The Last of Us meets like Terminator.
Right.
Meets like, I don't know, pick any fucking Korean war movie.
Yeah.
Right? Or Vietnam war movie.
With a little bit of Star Wars in there.
With a little bit of Star Wars, some like high concept science fiction.
Yeah, some iRobot.
So basically the AI kind of went rogue, or so we are led to believe.
Yep.
And then we have a dude who kind of hates the robots.
Yeah.
And then he has to help a little robot girl.
Yeah.
Go do robot shit.
Yep.
And it sounds like shit you've seen before.
It does, but also not like, I don't know. I've seen more derivative shit.
100%.
Like
that's the thing. Like that's what I'm saying. Like just because you have these concepts that we've seen, but we've seen The Last of Us. Yeah. We've seen Terminator.
I feel like Smile was more derivative. Like I feel like if you explain Smile to somebody, like they'd be like, "Oh, it's fucking this."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's because you're trying to break down like a whole ass story into like a sentence to relate to people what this thing is about.
Yep.
Right. So like you go with like the easiest way to describe it, but once you start like talking about some of the stuff they show in this movie, like the conflict between the AI and the humans is very different than like the conflict in Terminator, right? Like, yes, this movie does have elements of like the AI is rising up and fighting against the humans.
Yeah.
But that's not really what is happening in the story, right? We have almost an entire civilization of robots or like AI who are just trying to do their fucking thing.
Actually, it's interesting to talk about this with the whole Israel-Palestine thing going on right now. Like, we don't have to like go into like opinions on that, but like, because the movie begins with basically saying like the robots like fucking nuked Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And since then, the U.S. was like, "Go fuck yourself."
Essentially,
yeah.
yeah. And it's I like the way the story is told, where you can understand how they were so easily able to convince the entire United States into basically saying we're going to go absolutely ham on these AIs.
Yeah.
Because like they show Los Angeles and it's just like a hole.
So do refresh my memory.
Yes.
Do they ever like give us revealed information as to why they nuked Los Angeles, or is it
because the humans? You fell asleep during this, so Thanos like giving this movie like phrases, and he fell asleep for like 20 minutes.
I was a tired sponge.
He was a tired sponge.
Yeah.
They do say like he's talking to Ken Watanabe, and this is when they have spoilers. By the way, this movie's like 3 weeks old.
Yeah,
go see it.
Yeah,
if you need,
and a lot of you need to,
and a lot of you fucking
clearly,
need to, because this movie needs it.
Right.
Go fucking see it. Like, no excuse.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Go watch Taylor Swift for 3 hours?
You could
do that and then do this
both on the same day.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
People sat for fucking Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Yeah.
You can sit for Taylor Swift and then this.
You could.
Anyway,
this should have been Saw Patrol. Well, but anyway, continue.
Anyway, he does say that the humans were the ones who were at fault for nuking LA. They just like it was a human error, and instead of saying, "Oh shit, we fucked up,"
they blamed the robots
on the robots.
I see.
And because it's such a huge thing, it's easy to rally the troops against a single enemy.
Well, that is interesting because we will get to a point like, so you don't follow baseball, but like robot umpires are like
the thing now,
starting to become a thing in the minor leagues. Like some people
find robot umpires for me and anyone who doesn't understand what this means.
So umpires are the guy behind the batter. They call balls.
I'm not that dumb, okay?
But like,
I go to the Cougars game, okay?
Yeah, but they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes those mistakes can be like,
I've seen people get into fights over this.
Yeah.
Right? You call something a strike when it should have been the ball, or...
Yeah, and every once in a while, these can like decide games. Yeah. Right? So instead of a person, you have a robot, and the robot can pretty much tell with 100% accuracy, like, oh, like, this was a strike. This was a ball. Right? So then the question is, well, why don't the fuck do we just do the thing that doesn't make mistakes? And I shit you not, like, the argument against it is quote unquote
the jobs.
Not even the jobs.
Wow.
The human element.
Fuck the human element.
Removes the human element. You know what the human element is? The players.
The players, dude. Yeah. If you can have the human element removed from the play, the thing that might decide whether someone wins or loses.
Yeah.
And you leave solely the skill for the human element.
Yeah.
I think that's ideal.
I do think that's ideal.
Because, and that's the thing, right? So, like, right now, especially in the year of our Lord, 2023, like, AI is a hot button issue.
Yep.
Right? And sometimes you hear one person say, fuck AI, this is absolutely awful. Like, it's taking jobs away from the writers and the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But then they're like, look at what I made on DALL-E.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. Like, it's...
I am a firm believer that you cannot, short of actual like Armageddon or like decimation of a population, where like people just would not be able to trade and then technology would regress that way. I'm a firm believer that like you cannot stop the progression of technology.
No,
I think you should regulate it beforehand.
Yeah,
but like we can blame the Republicans for making that impossible on every issue, right? Like AI's here. COVID's here.
Here's the thing. Like, AI is here, and AI is already like progressing at such a rapid rate.
Yeah.
That for lack of a better phrasing, like the genie's out of the bottle.
Yes.
What can you do? Well, you can regulate it, and then you can maybe use it to help in other ways. It's like automation.
Yeah.
Right? Like for a long time, automation was like such a big thing. You have like the assembly line and like then you started to like, make that into robots building shit.
Right.
Well, guess what? Now you need jobs for maintaining those robots.
Yes.
Right. So like, just be smart about it.
Be smart about it. Now, like once you get to the point of general AI, which is basically like machines that can teach themselves about whatever the fuck they want. Right. Then you are in a new paradigm. Right. Because then you've created like, you've created something that intellectually supersedes what humans can do. I mean, people debate how far away we are from that, but like some people say 50 years minimum. Some people say like more than 50 years. But like the point is, you're right, cat's out of the bag. So we can either harness it, because on the other end, like if we want to like leave this planet one day and like preserve the species, because like eventually like, there's going to be too many of us here. Like we got to like if we want to survive as a species, like we got to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need technology to do that.
Yeah. So we can dive a little bit into some of these themes, right? Because the movie is full of themes, right? This is, and feel free to disagree with me. I feel like this is the most like intellectual movie we've had this year.
Yes, that we've seen and talked about.
Seen. Yeah. Obviously, there's maybe more that we haven't seen. But as far as like your more broad-reaching, like general audience movies, I think this one is this year.
This and Oppenheimer.
Yes. Yeah, probably. Yeah, these two. But they're also like for different reasons.
Correct.
Right? Oppenheimer was more like the ethical dilemma of like what to do during war.
Yeah.
This one deals more with like the human, like what.
Well, what does it mean to be human, right? Exactly. Which is the humanities question 101.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this movie follows Denzel Jr., who like he lost his family during the nuking.
Yep.
He is essentially like a double agent. He is incognito.
Yeah.
With the robots.
Yep.
He falls in love with a woman who is
friends with the robots.
Yeah. And as soon as like that becomes like shown to you, you go, oh, this is exactly where this movie is going.
Yeah.
Which, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
We don't need to like try to pretend that it's not
correct
something that it's not, right? But I do like the way that he is shown to have his reasons for like having this huge fucking chip on the shoulder about like this war, right? Like on one hand, he hates the fact that he has been led to believe that the robots are the ones who essentially nuked LA and destroyed his family.
Yep.
But now it's his side that also then cost him his wife, right? Yep. His wife is shown to have died, quote unquote, at the beginning of the movie. And she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Right. So that does a good job at setting up this internal conflict that he's going to be having to face with. And honestly, like I think the whole supporting cast does a really good job at like showing you like these different sides.
Yes.
I think one of my favorite characters in this is Allison Janney, who is the Colonel.
Yeah.
She's the one who is like she's such a dick.
Yes.
But at the same time, like you can kind of see why she's a dick. Because she's the type of person who you feel like just buys into the propaganda that her country has given her. There's nothing that leads you to believe that she maybe knows all the details. I feel like what's his name? The general. Ralph Ineson. He's the guy with like the really deep voice.
Right.
I think he might be a little bit more
he actually knows what's going on.
Maybe more. He seems like higher ranking, whereas like Allison Janney seems more like on the ground, like part of the operation.
Well, she's kind of like she reminds me a lot of Avatar General Dude. Commander Cliche, as some reviewers call him.
What's his fucking name, dude?
I don't fucking know. But like
it's Jake Sully.
Jake Sully. But like but she kind of carries that like hoorah energy in that like in a female package, which once again it's not about the what, it's about the how. It's interesting to see that like you can take someone who's feminine and like you get them so hard line opposed and wanting to annihilate something in a very masculine way. And I think that's that's kind of what gives that movie like its own unique coat of paint, right? Where it's like, this helps it stand out from the rest.
You know what does not stand out from like everything else?
What?
Ken Watanabe being a wise old Asian man.
You know what? That can stay. That can stay everywhere.
Oh, by the way, the little girl who plays Alfie in this movie.
So good.
Dude, she's so good. There was a scene where like they're talking about like, if is he gonna go to heaven? And she says, like, or he says, no, like, I'm gonna go to heaven. Like, only good people go to heaven.
Yeah.
And later on, like, that gets brought back where, like, she's breaking down crying. She's like, I'm not gonna go to heaven. Like, I'm not a person.
Yeah.
And it fucking gets you. It gets
Her
so sad.
her ability to like cry and scream on stage was like
Really good.
awesome.
And there's a lot of things in this movie that just kind of makes you question the fact that, like, some of these robots are significantly more human
Right.
than the human characters, right?
Right.
There's a whole section devoted to these kids who have been adopted by the robots because the parents were killed during the war.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they get blown up, and you see the robots crying over their family members coming back dead, right? And these are humans who have died, who the robot is crying for them. And the movie kind of wants you to have that conflict of, well, are they actually sad, or are they programmed to
be sad?
Because I think Joshua says that a lot. He says, like, oh, they're not real people, they don't have real feelings, like, it's all coded. But, like, how is that different than people who lie to your face and say, I'm happy for you?
Well, that's also, but then once you get into general AI, it create feelings for itself.
Exactly.
And then this also gets into like the question of religion, but like your feelings didn't just start from somewhere. Like,
you have to be taught.
You have to, well, taught. I mean, like, they are innate, but still, like, you didn't always exist, right? So like something had to put the biochemical wiring of your brain into orbit in the first place, right? So whether you believe that's a deity, whether you believe that's just like biology, like, your feelings are something that's a result of a different process. So like general AI is a process, right? But eventually, like, in theory, like, if the machine can teach itself whatever it wants to, like, it could create feelings.
Yeah. So there's a show that I really like. It's an anime called Sword Art Online. People have issues with it. I understand. It's a very horny show sometimes. But one of the big themes, especially in the last season, is the idea of the difference between top-down AI and bottom-up AI. So top-down is you feed it all the information, and then the AI will essentially just do things based on what it knows, right? What you gave it. But then in later seasons, they start talking about bottom-up. So this is little seeds that start to grow and then starts to form a personality, an entire world.
And that's what general AI could be, right?
Yeah. And so then there's this thing about, like, is it ethical to use this and then, like, destroy it? Right? So, like, you have something that essentially came from nothing.
Right.
Was spawned. It has its own, like, ideas that it knows from the world it lives in. If you destroy this, are you essentially just doing the same thing as if you were to destroy a city? Right. And I do like that conflict, and I think that's touched on here, because it is truly devastating in this movie to see, like, when they have their peaceful village, everybody's just hanging out. Yes, they're obviously armed because they have to protect themselves, and they're always getting constantly nuked by what's basically a Death Star. Yeah. Right.
I like how it looks.
I like the look of it.
I like how it's such a simple. Yeah.
It's such a simple concept, right? Because, like, the Death Star is this huge imposing thing.
Big circle.
Right? Big circle. But it's also, like, I do love the idea of the Death Star because it just looks like a big asshole, like a big fucking eye. Not a big asshole. A big ass fucking eye in the sky watching you, right? But I love the simplicity of this thing. It looks like it's very thin, kind of pointy in the middle, and then it just fucks you up.
It's like scans barcodes.
Yeah. It's but then also, like, they had that scene where they're in that town, and you just see, like, all the trees start to shake, and you see these giant ass, like, tanks show up. And one thing that Gareth Edward does really well is he's really good at showing you scale of things.
Yep.
making things that are big
feel big. And that was Rogue One.
Rogue One. That scene in Rogue One where they're storming the beach.
Yeah.
And they're like running alongside the
AT-ATs.
Yeah. Like that's one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That one and the Holdo maneuver.
That
I think for me are some of the, like, visually speaking.
I like the Star Destroyer that crashes into another Star Destroyer in Rogue One. I think it like slide, like they like nudge it with the hammerhead and it like slide. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's able to show this, just this massive scale.
Yeah.
And seeing these people like alongside these things, it just, and for such a low budget too. Mm-hmm. I think is just what makes this movie stand out even more.
Yeah.
So essentially the whole point of the movie is they're trying to find this AI. They find it. He has to get it out of the city. He has to go return it to the humans. He kind of gets attached to it.
Yep.
Things happen. He eventually learns that the sole purpose of this thing was to end the war.
Yes.
Right?
Kill the Death Star thingy.
Kill the Death Star
Which one's it called again?
The Nomad.
The Nomad. That's right.
Nomad. Yeah. And how that's supposed to happen is kind of unclear. I believe it's the Ken Watanabe robot. Mm-hmm. Says that like the way it's supposed to do it is essentially like go up to it, self-destruct with it, and then Alfie would die.
Yeah.
Right. But they also don't know. Like they don't know the extent to what her powers are going to be.
We know that she can like boop off technology.
Yeah, she can like manipulate maybe like the energy in things, maybe kind of like an EMP, but not quite, because it doesn't fry them, because she can restart things.
Boop them back on again. Yeah.
So like her powers are a little ambiguous for a good reason. I think you don't need to get super like into the details about it. But I do enjoy that he then finds a way to help her achieve her goal without like sacrificing her. Yeah, right? Because that's his arc. He wants to preserve her life, even though the argument of this movie is artificial life as valuable as like human life, right?
And I always I like to joke about this with friends, but I'm like, mark my words, your grandchildren will be part robot, right? But like, I mean,
I'm here for this, dude.
If we think about it, like we fucked the Neanderthals over, right? Yeah. Like I think actually the movie does mention that specifically, right? So, I mean, we're a speck in the parade, right? And like our ancestor is gonna, or not our ancestor, but like our descendant is gonna eclipse us, right?
But here's the thing about this movie, right? So we say in the movie, the Colonel does say like, we had the Neanderthals. Yeah. What did we do as the human race? We just took them and we fucked them out of existence, right? Yeah. And they are saying, well, that's going to happen to us with the AI.
With the AI, so they're aware of it.
They're aware of that. But at the same time, every time they show you AI interacting with humans, they are shown to be able to get along. Yes, there's conflicts, obviously, because we are seeing a war where the American side is going over to New Asia to absolutely like fuck them up. So there is that conflict, right? But whenever the AI robots are shown to be interacting with humans on, normal terms, they're generally accepting.
Well, and here, I wasn't around when the Neanderthals were around, obviously, right? But whatever was the first Homo sapien, like, couldn't have been that far off from a Neanderthal.
No.
And I mean, that's just like what evolution is. It's gradual change over time. So like, yes, like they're depicted as to like coexisting perfectly fine until like humans try to like, hunt them down. Yeah. But also like that, I don't want to call it progression, but like that just moving from past to future happens is like, it's a baton passing. It's not so much like
an eradication.
Yes.
And that's Alfie's role in this, right? Yeah. Because they do say that, well, Alfie is, artificially made. She was made using like a real human embryo, right? Yep. And she is going to grow, whereas all the other machines do not. Right. They are
they're born as
they're made as they're made human size, and then they get put on with a face.
Yes.
Whereas Alfie is going to grow without having to get like module implants or anything like that, right? So I do think that is a good kind of, you know, comparison to like the idea of this Neanderthal thing, right? Yeah. They're not just going to like suddenly start, you know, nuking cities like they kind of were led to believe initially. But again, that's not the reality of what happened.
Yes.
Right? I don't know, man. Humans kind of suck.
Well, I mean, yeah, and like in this movie, they are depicted as sucking, but like the AI is, I mean, the AI in this movie is an image of humanity.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just passing that baton. So like, yes, some of them suck, but also some of them don't suck.
Yeah. Right? I think one of the coolest things in this movie is like the way they show the different technology. Like how people can have like when they are dying, they can have their brain scanned.
Yeah.
Put into a little chip, and then boop, you put it into a new computer.
I liked how but I liked how it I liked how there was a time limit to that. That actually, I would say, I mean, I haven't seen that in a movie. I'm sure like someone's thought of that idea before, but I liked how it's like, oh, like how long has he been dead? Okay, upload quick because we probably only got like 30 seconds. And then you upload it and like 10 of those seconds are like the person fucking panicking.
That was really good. Yeah. I like that scene.
Yeah.
So the realization that he's like, ah, shit.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that exact articulation of uploading consciousness of the deceased into, an object before. But
have you seen Altered Carbon?
No.
So Altered Carbon deals with that a little bit. It's not necessarily with AI, but it does deal with like people are not necessarily called people; they're called sleeves. So what they do is they take your consciousness, they put it into a chip, and then you can just be put into whatever body you fucking want. Yeah. If you want to be a dude one day, you can be a dude. If you want to be a woman one day, you can be a woman. First season, the main character is played by Joel Kinnaman. Yeah. Second season, same character,
but different.
It's Anthony Mackie.
Ah, cool.
And it's just something that happens. There's a really good episode in that show where on the date, I can't remember if it's Day of the Dead or if it's on the mom's birthday. Yeah. They have her chip and they go and they rent a sleeve and they pop it in and they get to spend the day with the grandma. And it's just like, this is what happens. Like, it's expensive to be able to put your body into a new sleeve. Yeah. But the people who are struggling can at least have one day where you can save your money for the year. You rent a sleeve and then you get to have fun. And it's supposed to be the grandma, but it's this big burly tattoo. So like it's
what's the show called again?
Altered Carbon.
Have you seen White Christmas, the Black Mirror episode?
No.
Okay, that's the best one. I mean, it's intelligence uploaded into. It's an AI episode, basically. Gotcha. But yeah, it's so once again not been done, but like I loved the way they showed like the panic and then the fact that like the consciousness would not be there forever. Interestingly enough, in some ways I found the technology like a little nerfed.
I feel like maybe a little nerfed, but it feels like we're maybe even within the next like 50 to 60 years, maybe there's some semblance of that could be possible. Yeah. Like you watch a lot of movies about the future, you go, there's no fucking way that's happening anytime soon. Maybe in the long distant future. But I feel like everything in this movie, minus obviously the AI, I think there's something in the timeline of that movie where they show that robot technology was significantly more advanced in like the 80s with that first opening scene where it feels like very 50s. Yeah. But I mean, if you think about like the 2000s, right? Yeah. And you think ahead and you were to show someone videos of like Boston Dynamics robots. Yeah. You'd be like, there's no fucking way. Right. Like that's gonna happen. Right. And now, kind of like we said with AI, like it's not just this is where it's gonna be. Like the amount of progress in just the last year
is huge.
We were fucking around with Dolly
Right.
in late 2021, maybe 2022.
Yeah.
And now you fucking pop onto Midjourney and you can make some borderline impressive things.
Yeah. I also, so here's what I say about Nerf. It's like, it is a minor one. It's like, oh, like we're only going to the moon, right? Like nowhere, like
I
nowhere
see, I
further.
see, I see.
Then also, I think maybe this was my one big complaint with the movie. I get why the U.S. is cast as the bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
but like I can't see a future where the U.S. just divorces itself from AI, like
Entirely.
entirely.
No fucking way, dude.
Like Silicon Valley is here. Like we like our I mean success in our culture, like the American dream is just cultivating more convenience for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think and then granted I it didn't like kill the movie for me at all, but that's what I was when I'm watching and they're like we're Americans and like we don't want the fucking robots. I'm like bullshit.
I mean, the mere fact that like this awful thing happened and like the next day they were like, we're banning all AI.
No.
And then you hear about like, whatever school shooting happened this week. And
Yeah.
they're like, thoughts and prayers, homies.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Like that right there told you you're in the different fucking reality here.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this movie. The only question that I really do have before we like wrap up is kind of like what you were going off of in like earlier at the very beginning. Like, why is this not connecting with people?
Part of it might be the marketing. Like, I feel like I didn't learn about this movie until relatively close.
It did not have a huge
yeah.
marketing window, but I remember seeing the trailer multiple times when I go to see the movies. But we also go to the movies a lot.
Right.
I'm done. I'm not done, but I'm ready to be done having Dream On song in the trailer. I don't know if I can take any trailer with fucking Steven Taylor going.
I fucking like Dream On.
That's a great song, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I need it in a trailer for a hot minute.
There's that new wrestling movie that's coming out by A24.
The one with Zac Efron?
I don't know if he's
the Claw something like that?
Yeah, the Claw. Carmi's in it from The Bear. I know he's in it.
Oh really?
But it opens with Don't Fear the Reaper.
Mm.
And then halfway through it switches to Tom Sawyer. And like someone was a fan of Rock Band 1.
Yep. Speaking of Rock Band 1, I'm excited for the resurgence.
This is the second resurgence.
Of Guitar Hero?
Yes. Wasn't there like...
There was one... but here's... All right, we're getting totally sidetracked, but I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
So Rock Band... So it was Guitar Hero, then Rock Band, and then they both like boogied themselves off the face of the earth by like oversaturating the market.
Right, but then...
And then Guitar Hero came back with Guitar Hero Live.
Yes.
Which was an extremely flawed concept from the very beginning. I don't know. Did you ever play it?
No.
So basically what it was they changed the guitar. Instead of being 5 buttons all down the face of the guitar, they did 3 on top, 3 on bottom.
Yes.
And then you could do like chord structures, which is cool.
Yeah.
But also like you're changing something that didn't need to be changed.
Right.
So people did not adopt it.
Right.
Then instead of just giving you a fucking playlist of songs, they had this thing called GH Live Channel, which you could pay for, and they would just cycle songs.
So it's like Spotify.
So like you had to pay for a subscription for this thing to be.
It's like Pandora.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And people were like, dude, just give me a fucking set list.
Yeah.
Give me some DLC.
Yeah.
And call it a day.
Yeah. I mean, you could spend a lot of money on Rock Band DLC.
Dude.
Like if you're spending like
I have
$2 per song,
600 songs in Guitar Hero or Rock Band.
What's it? $200 a song? Is that one?
Some of them were like a pack to get cheap. Some of them would be like free.
Yeah.
I think mine is also bolstered because you could transfer your songs from like Rock Band 1 and 2.
Yes.
Anyway, totally sidetracked. But like this movie is not really hitting with a lot of people. Like the audiences were pretty high on it. It's got an 8.
Audiences were high? I thought critics were high and audiences were poop.
No, audiences were actually like 67%.
Yeah.
So it's like it's still fresh.
Right.
But it's like lower tier fresh, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like this movie should be seen higher.
Yes.
And also it's only rated a 6.7 out of 10 from the critics. And then the audience is 76% score, 8 out of 10 average. And the box office is not looking too good.
Right.
Globally, it's 63 million out of 80.
Jesus.
Which, like, again, to your point.
That's some bullshit.
To your point,
yeah.
If you're bitching and moaning
about
new shit,
yeah.
And then you get mad when Marvel has the 30th fucking movie in the list.
Which next month, baby.
Hell yeah, dude.
Drift time.
Hell yes. But here's the thing. Like, I love big blockbuster movies. Yeah. I'm perfectly fine getting my monthly serving of whatever big franchise is coming out.
You saw X?
I saw X. And you know what? It was a grand old time. Yep. No alcohol required, right? But at the same time, I am not a person who goes, fuck those movies, only support the originals. Yeah. But there are people who are very loudly, like, hey, nothing original happening. What is wrong if we just replace the writers? They don't have anything original coming out anyway. Right. And then you finally have a couple of original movies. You have this one. I just saw the movie called When Evil Lurks over the weekend, which is an Argentinian movie. Bottoms was out. And people are just like, eh. Yeah. No Hard Feelings was out, and it wasn't like a flop, but it also wasn't like a huge.
Wasn't gangbusters.
Gangbusters, right? So, like, at a certain point, you have to be like, maybe it's me.
I think every human being underestimates the extent to which they are susceptible to branding.
Yes.
First and foremost. Second most. A lot of those, like, original only, especially once we got to the point of writer strikes. A lot of those people are just like Republicans, right? Or like edgelord YouTube,
it's
Twitter.
The people who are like Hollywood gone too woke. Yes. Where's the original stuff?
Now, all of those people were creaming their jeans over fucking the Jim Caviezel movie.
Oh yeah.
Yes, right. And only for like, I haven't heard people talking about it for a while, but like
once the culture war stuff died down
for a week, they were all about that movie. So I think that unless something's just like blatantly conservative, and now like conservatives just become like meth level, like not Dark Knight Rises conservative, but like, you know, like screaming and crazy. I think like that crowd is just never gonna like be a fan of something unless it's that. So I don't know, combination of the marketing, combination of.
Do you follow Cody Johnston?
Nope.
No.
So, yes, the cracked guy.
The cracked guy.
Yeah,
exactly right. So he just did an episode of his show on the film industry and like why everything's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the things he was talking about was like the amount of like quote unquote original movies in the top 10 box office from like back in the 80s to like now.
Yeah.
Right. And like this year alone, and I can verify, like there is not a single, just kidding, there is one single movie, two movies that are not based on something else.
What is it?
Elemental is number 9 in the worldwide box office.
That's a Pixar, so that, you know, just barely counts.
Kind, but it's still technically speaking an original story, right? But even it's from a big company, right? And I don't even know if you want to count Oppenheimer because it's technically speaking based on
the Prometheus book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to say like it's an original IP, maybe Barbie hasn't had like another, you know, like a big like worldwide movie. Technically speaking, the Mario movie is not a sequel to anything, but it is based on something, right? Yeah. So like. Yes, I understand. There is nothing that is truly original that is not based on anything else. The only thing I can maybe see this year are some movies out of fucking like India.
Yeah, but then we also don't even know what cultural milieu they're pulling stuff from, right?
Exactly.
Like it's original to us because we're not Indian. A
story, like a folktale that they know.
Yeah.
Maybe a book that they read. Right. The Boogeyman is based on Stephen King.
Yeah. And it was poo-poo.
Fucking Plane.
Wow.
The Plane movie.
Yeah.
With Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter is one of the only ones here that I can see that is not
based on anything.
Cocaine Bear.
Yeah. loosely based on a true story.
Loosely based on a true story, right?
Right.
But everything else, and at a certain point, you kind of have to be like, maybe people just need to like be more conscious about what they're fucking watching if you really care that much.
Well, so here, Chris Stuckman put it very well when he was kind of explaining how the movie industry works in his eyes. But I want to preface this by saying, like, it's just hard in general to produce good art that is also published. Yeah. Right? We have a family friend who's married to an English professor. I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast because he teaches creative writing. He has books that are published. Right? I bought one of his poetry books, and it was bad. Right?
Criticism is important.
It's important. Now he also did aphorisms, which I thought were very good. So Lawrence, like, if you're listening to this, your aphorisms are dope. Didn't care for Newbird or whatever the fuck that poetry collection was. Like, this is someone who's like an expert in this field more than like 99% of the population, right? Like, he teaches it, like he's getting it published. Like, they don't just publish anybody. Like, you have to like put in the work, and like you have to know the right people, and you have to have some level of skill, right? So this is someone who like is good at what he does better than most people, and like it was still poo poo, right? Like I've read books that are like, this is the librarian. It's like top recommended, whatever the fuck. Like, I read it. I'm like, I think this is poo poo, right? And like, but like, it's hard to make like good stuff. And so to pivot to Stuckman, he was saying like, here's the thing with the movie industry. He's like, number one, recognizable IP is always going to sell more.
Oh, absolutely. It's always going to trump your indie movie.
But then when you get to pitching stuff that's original, like, they get millions of pitches or they get thousands of pitches, right? Like, you have to sell it to them as it's this movie meets this movie.
If someone is going to be giving you $80 million, like, I know we're saying like, oh, it's such a low budget. It's still $80 fucking million that someone's got to write a check for. You need to tell them this is going to be successful because it's like this.
Yes.
And people just don't seem to understand that.
Yeah.
People just see big budget, hoo-ha bad.
But here, where do I want to stay every time? Like, I go to a hotel in the future? Fucking Hampton. I don't want to fuck with Airbnb. Where do I go for coffee every morning? Panera, right? Like, there's something about trusting, like, a brand that, like, just takes a mental weight of decision making off your shoulders, right? Yeah. And the same rules apply to film.
Exactly.
So,
and also,
it'd be what it be.
It depends also on the type of movie that you're making, right?
Yeah.
If you're making a big, like, high concept sci-fi, it is going to be more expensive. So you might have a harder time getting your budget. Like, if you have a smaller indie movie, which is like a character piece about a teacher at a liberal arts school, right? You might have an easier time getting like a couple $1 million,
right?
And you might not have to try to convince them that hard. But like these big movies, yeah, dude,
you need the money. And here, so back to like why people are not seeing this, or like I say, like, just go see this movie for the visuals.
Oh yeah,
like for also all the we haven't talked about this, but like for also all the talk about how like Marvel's like CGI is kind of like gone down the tube a little bit, right? Because of like, Disney running these people into the ground.
Yep.
Right? This looks fucking great. And I think a movie being visually stunning, I don't say visually good, I say visually stunning, is good enough reason to be like, I want to check this out.
So one of the things that was talked about in that video that I watched yesterday is how they make these movies differently. So earlier I mentioned about how this movie, they had to go to these locations. They had to take a very small crew.
Yeah.
If you're going to be doing that, you need to make sure that you know exactly what you're there for. You do not have
which Disney does not do with Marvel.
Exactly. Yeah. So like if you're going to go to somewhere out in Asia to get some really nice, like, scenery, and then you're gonna add your visual effects to it later. You need to know what you're going to add. You need to know where you're gonna be filming this, and you're gonna frame your shot perfectly.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you think about movies like Indiana Jones, think about the Marvel movies, the fucking Flash, any of these movies.
We need a fight in the snow. We don't know about what yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like a lot of things are probably going to change in post.
Yeah.
Because they don't they don't plan these things out ahead. Yeah. There's a reason why something like Guardians of the Galaxy stands out significantly over
Thor 4.
Thor 4. Yeah. Because James Gunn
knows what he wants.
Yeah. He if anybody like looks up how he does his thing, he like still storyboards his entire fucking movie. Yeah. And that way he knows exactly what he wants shot. Yeah. He knows exactly what's going to go where. If they need to make a change, you can still do it, but it's going to fit within the frame of what is shot.
Here's my whitest moment of the show. So the movie about AI is made in the least AI way. This is a very like humanly told movie.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. And I think the fact that this movie is, and it doesn't need to make money because it doesn't need to have a sequel.
Right.
But I kind of wish or hope that this does not tank Gareth Edwards' like ability to make more movies.
Yeah.
Because all of the movies that I've seen that he's made, I think visually are amazing. Mm-hmm. But I also think like the stories themselves are pretty good.
Yeah.
He has a movie from 2010 called Monsters, which is really good. I really like the visuals in Godzilla.
I like the first Godzilla.
He did not write the movie.
Yeah.
But everything about that movie that is visually done, I think is amazing. Like, it's a movie where Godzilla only shows up for like 15 minutes of screen time.
Right.
But it's still some of my favorite Godzilla like visuals.
Yes.
Star Wars visually is probably my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yep.
And I just hope that does not get in the way of him being able to keep working.
Well, speaking of brands, I hope that he's cultivated enough of a brand for himself.
I think so. I think his name is recognizable. People confuse him a lot of the times for Gareth Evans, who is another white dude, but he makes really good martial arts movies.
Yeah.
He works with a lot of people in Indonesia, and he's made these two very, very popular action movies that get placed in like John Wick levels of praise.
Yeah.
I've seen only the first one. I want to see the second one.
There's our John Wick mention of the day.
Hey! And on that note, thank you all for listening. We haven't been recording super often lately because we've been busy.
Yes, but at least we're doing 2 episodes at a time.
But we are, and we can space them out.
Yep.
So please make sure you share, you like,
subscribe.
If you want to support us, you can always talk to us about getting a shirt that says blank is cool and the options are just
wearing them right now.
We are.
Yeah, together.
Courtesy of my mommy.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you all for listening. Please go watch this movie.
Please.
It's so good. All right, everybody. Until next time, he has been Thano.
He has been Javier.
And this has been the Cine-Scoots Movie Show.
Bye. Bye.